All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is an episode of Cheap Gear. This week we're talking about the Korg Triton, 61 key workstation from the late 1990s, early 2000s. This is the OG Triton, not the Extreme or the LE. Full touchscreen. The touchscreen still does work, still does change sounds. Does everything you would expect it to. This is mostly fully functional. I had the volume turned down just a little bit, so it's not just too. It has the pitch and mod joystick, along with the slide ribbon. I can't hold the phone. Which works more of a high pass filter. Of course, you can operate and make beats on this thing and change the tempo with the gate and the velocity sensitivity. It does have global settings. Normally, somebody had mine set to where it's 40 steps out of tune, so I have to go in here and set it every time I turn it on. This keyboard is a beast. It does everything that a workstation should. If you buy one of these used, you want to make sure that it's fully functioning. That all the ins and outs on the keyboard work. MIDI in and out, especially if you're using a bigger keyboard to run this with. I use a Yamaha SO8 as a MIDI controller for it. I also use the Yamaha MX as a MIDI controller for this as well. Anything that has 5-pin MIDI is being used as a MIDI controller for the Triton, because the keys are kind of they're old and they do kind of click and clack. So, and I like playing with weighted keys. So if I get my hands on a weighted 88 key keyboard, that's what I typically use to control the Triton. The main sounds you're using this for: the choirs, the orchestras, the strings, the synths, the pads, and the electric pianos, or my absolute, the must-haves. They're bread and butter for workstations. It has a lot of effects loaded into the board already. The drum kits on here are world class, even going on 20 years after it came out. They're still world class. You can still get a lot of work done in producing with this keyboard. I use it playing into an interface and using Ableton Live, using the sampler in Ableton. When I say this keyboard is if you can get one, and that's the main thing. Now, if you had the money to buy a Phantom O or a Korg Cross or a Chrome, then I would say, hey man, get the new stuff. But if you can't afford to buy a Korg Chrome Yamaha Montage, you can't really afford the new workstation, then I would say looking for one of these used, it is a great deal. It's a good deal for you. And once again, especially if you are looking into getting into music production, you're playing click tracks in the Ableton for your church and, for your live sets and that nature, then yeah, a Korg Triton is still a relevant keyboard. It still keeps up with a lot of the newer keyboards today. So the Triton, what I say is probably there are a few weaknesses in having a keyboard that's old. And mainly is because some of the sounds do get outdated. I know the pianos on here, the regular piano sounds aren't the best, you know. Now the ones that have pads on them are really good. They're really dope. And man, if you're setting up praise and worship, or you're setting up click tracks for Ableton, this keyboard can do that. If you are doing film and animation and needing soundtracks for that, this keyboard can do that. We was listening to the Black Panther soundtrack, go see the movie, and a lot of the sounds, especially the orchestral sounds, you can get that out of here. That this keyboard can score movies. You know, I wouldn't say like, oh, it takes the place of an orchestra or nothing like that. Or just think that back in the 90s, these things used to be $3,000 and $4,000. You know, people used to still. This is probably the most stolen keyboard in the history of keyboards, and this keyboard would stop you from going out and buying. Well, yeah, if you like buying keyboards and you just gotta have the newest and best thing, then of course you're gonna go out and buy the new keyboard. But if you have a keyboard like this and you're starting out, or you're just an intermediate keyboard player, you just want to produce music, you're learning how to get produce beats or make tracks or write songs, it's the perfect keyboard to do that with. You know, yeah, it's not, I would say that it doesn't have the prettiest pianos. Probably about 8 or 9 pianos in here are usable. I'm being real. But as far as electric pianos, as far as synthesizers, as far as strings, it's right up there with the Nautilus. It's right up there with the new keyboards, with the motifs, with the montages. It's right there. This is a full workstation. You know, you can go out and spend, you know, a Phantom O was going to run you around $1,500, $1,600. And that's for the Phantom 06. You know, and I would say as far as new keyboards, between that and maybe a Korg Cross, which is around the same price, that will get you in the game. But if you can find a used Triton, especially one that's fully functional, man, you can take these out. You can gig with them. This thing has been a tank. I've had this one for a couple of years now. And I do a lot of work in it. Our first track that we released, Pisces, a lot of the work was done on this very same keyboard. And a lot of the pads, there, you know, the funny thing is, if you play a brand new keyboard and there's a few sounds that, you know, is new in that nature, but a lot of the pads, a lot of the drums and everything else that this keyboard has, it's the same that they're using right now. You know, the same hip hop, the same programming. My cat wants to say hi to everybody. Say hi, Caspian. I don't know why she jumped on me now. But this keyboard has a lot of the same sounds that a modern keyboard has. Now, I will say the touchscreen and all that stuff is dated. Yeah, you will have to do some menu diving. You will have to, you know, set your sounds, your favorite sounds up in your memory so you don't have to go digging. If you are gigging or doing church sets with this, you will want to have your stuff set in your memory so you don't have to go pressing buttons to find it. But other than that, as far as a workstation, as far as something you're producing tracks with and finishing beats with, man, this keyboard is a beast. It is a complete monster, and I am blessed to have found mine for the price. And I'm not gonna say the price I got it for, but it was, I say it was not over $300, you know. But for the money, you're not gonna find used keyboards, and I'm talking about used montages. You go on eBay and try to find an even older Korg M1 or a Korg M3, And you're still going to be spending over $1,000 for these guys in decent condition. And this keyboard, minus the stop and play button, which I use software anyway, so I don't really use the keyboard for that. But as running these sounds or saving them into the sampler in Ableton or using them in the Koala app with the iPhone, yeah, man, this is a dope keyboard, and I'm not selling mine. I'm not selling mine, but it is just one of those things where, you know, when you have a keyboard like this, it really opens your eyes, you know, to what professional sounds, what aftertouch, all those professional grade keyboards, when you really spending thousands of dollars on and stuff, this really opens your head to that. And you really, if you can find one of these guys, and that's the case, if you can find one that's fully functional, or that you know, a repair shop can take care of for you for not a whole lot of money, these keyboards, even in use, like I say, cheap gear, this is what the show is called, these keyboards are worth it. You know, I would say that these keyboards are worth it. Yeah, you're gonna spend a couple of $100, or maybe $400 or $500 sometimes, 300 if you have a musician that's desperate. But if you can get your hand on a Korg Triton in decent condition, not one that has the screen broke, not one that's not turning on, that type of stuff. If you can get one that's fully functional for under $400 or $500, it's definitely worth it. Well, that's another episode of Cheap Gear for us. We have a few of the projects that are coming out in the next couple of weeks. We thank everyone for listening and supporting us. Shout out to everybody that watched the last video on the Casio CTS-1. And like I said, we got a couple of more keyboards we'll be reviewing. I have a DGX 520, so definitely I will definitely try to get a video up on that before I take it back to the students that I had keeping it. And just once again, thank everybody for listening. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we'll see you on another episode.